I get asked all the time, and I'm glad you asked, what's the number one thing that makes the biggest difference in a kid that comes to your court? And I would say it's a parent that decides, I got a parent. I can't keep doing things the same way that we've been doing them, and I have accountability and responsibility through that. Once that happens, get me out of the way. I serve no purpose. Because you have that, you don't need a court.
This is Season 3 of the Smart Justice Podcast, A Chance at Life.
Crime and punishment are hot topics. Are there solutions different than what we're hearing about at a national level?
Kids find themselves just struggling to survive, doing the best they can.
There is a different way to approach justice that has better return on investment.
We don't want people to be dependent. We want to help them get to stability.
That seems to strengthen both law enforcement and courts.
The number one goal in most cases, we want reunification.
And tie that together with community resources and then track the impact to communities and better outcomes.
The best place for a child who's in our foster care system is with a family.
And we're calling this approach Smart Justice.
Smart Justice is a work of Restore Hope and partner organizations. Restore Hope is a software and services organization that helps communities achieve better outcomes for justice and child welfare efforts. Smart Justice is focused on optimizing the system by improving the relationships among its parts.
A chance at life.
Welcome back to Season 3 of Smart Justice, A Chance at Life, where we're talking about the child welfare system. In this episode, we're going to talk very particularly about youth who are in the legal system, and then also when things don't go well if they've been placed into foster care. So, Andrew, we know that it is very difficult on children, especially as they start to age. The youth, they're teenagers, they're aging out, and many times those children can actually enter the legal system where they've got issues with truancy, other behavior problems, or even committing some crimes. If you're in the system as a youth, what's prospective outcomes look like for that individual?
The stats aren't good. I mean, they're just, whether in our state or nationwide, for a kid over the age of 12, and then if that kid is to stay in care all the way through the time in which they can age out, obviously being able to age out and emancipate yourself at 18, which many do that, even though they don't necessarily have the supports and the structures in place. You have some organizations who are doing great work in trying to help, Merce, Arkansas being one of them. I can't say enough good about what they're trying to do. Timothy Hill Ranch is another one, because it's just really, really difficult. And
it's a hard time in life anyway.
It's a hard time.
Anyone that's raised kids.
It's a hard time to be a teenager in our country. Let's just be honest. And people are like, well, but back in my day, no, back in your day looked nothing like today. These little things right here changed everything. And so, one of the pieces, though, it is really hard. And I am constantly motivated in working with kids who are over the age of 12 that find themselves in the system to just see, can we help you build some resilience? Can we help you have some wins? Whatever that might look like.
It really goes to the chance at life. If you're in the system at 12 and above, then your future outlook is pretty bleak. It doesn't mean that you're doomed, but the statistical outcomes are not good.
Well, for me, it's very personal. I had the privilege of connecting with a young man who was in the system. We actually served on a panel together for DCFS at a training event where it was all the supervisors across the state who were brought together, and I was supposed to be on that panel talking about foster care. Talking about it from a foster parent perspective, and he was on the panel talking about it from the kid perspective and being a kid, and articulate. Oh my word, was he articulate! Unbelievably articulate. was already serving. I mean, he was beating the odds in every way. And in passing, he said his dream was to become a translator for the United Nations. And I was going to be leaving the country to go to Central America. Thanks to a lot of people jumping through a whole lot of hoops, he got to board a plane with me and went and was my translator in Nicaragua. And just great. And just I can't say enough. But he lost his life in returning to the streets and got the wrong place at the wrong time, as people would say. It wasn't something that he did. I mean, all of that has now come to public light, kind of what happened in his situation. And again, he was unbelievable and doing it right. But the system that he found, the community he found himself in, it wasn't going to happen. People hear the negative. Man, the love I got to experience with that dude, I wish he was still here. I was in Nicaragua this summer, and somebody reminded me. They wanted to know where my friend was. And I wish that whole situation was different. If I could go back in that moment when we first met, would I do it again? I would do everything we did again. Again, the stats for a kid over the age of 12 they're not good. They're hard. It's another level when you start talking about teens. It's another level when you start talking about the judicial system in regards to juveniles. We got some kids who've done some heinous stuff. There's no two ways around it. And I'm not going to be a person to try to make the wrong that they've done right. That's not the answer. We got some kids that have seen some really, really bad stuff. And the state is in a position that we have to take care of them. They're not a problem to be solved. They're a person to be cared for. There's a big difference there.
I really kind of view that as a real opportunity. The juvenile justice system is an opportunity that when a kid starts to get in trouble, and we're not locking them up, but they're in court, that's a real opportunity to intervene in a way that prevents the likely future victims, adult crime, locked up for long times, and then getting into that particular return, which is not good statistically, on recidivism and kind of outcomes. So we had the opportunity to go meet with a very innovative judge, juvenile judge in the state of Arkansas, Judge Troy Braswell in Faulkner County. And he has had some really incredible outcomes in that county for youth and juveniles that are in his court. So Judge, tell me about the district you cover.
Sure. So my name is Troy Braswell. I have the honor of being a circuit judge in the 20th Judicial District. That covers Faulkner, Van Buren, and Searcy counties. So I've got court in Conway, Clinton, and all the way up to Marshall.
And what kind of cases are you covering?
Sure. So in all three counties, I handle our juvenile delinquency cases. I handle our juvenile offense cases, which can be truancy as well. And then in Faulkner County, I handle 50% of the adult criminal docket.
And you also serve on the Child Commission. What is?
I'm currently on the Arkansas Supreme Court Commission for Youth and Families. I was previously the chair of the Youth Justice Reform Board for the state of Arkansas.
In this issue of smart justice, we're really kind of exploring how would we prevent individuals from coming into foster care if kids are in care. How is it that we come around that family and some kind of support and maybe increase the opportunities for reunification, and then afterwards, what does support look like? So,
as you mentioned, it all really goes hand in hand. And so a case may start out where a kid is not in the foster care system, and in the middle of the case or at the end of the case, that may end up being something that happens. We obviously get kids that come into court that are currently in the foster care system. One thing that's important to me is that every case is different. And I think for a long time in juvenile court, it's been a cookie cutter approach. And what we noticed is it was really kind of already predetermined what the outcome was going to be, based solely on the offense that they were in court for. And so I got a sheet of paper that had listed out kind of the main juvenile offenses that come through the court. And out next to it was the most likely outcome of that case, 12 months probation, $250 fine, community service, whatever. And that really stuck out to me. We're telling kids before they even come see the judge, hey, it's a theft of property, this is the most likely outcome that you're going to get. And we really missed the boat on that because, as you know, they're all different. They're coming from different homes and different backgrounds and experiences, and we've got to be willing and able to adapt to meet those needs. And so one of the first things that we did is volunteer to be a pilot court for a new risk assessment tool, where families come in when they have contact with the court and they sit down just like we are right now, and they're asked questions about kind of their home life, their social background, have they witnessed violence in the home, criminal history of the family. They take a mental health assessment, a substance abuse assessment, and then based on that, after the interview is conducted, there's a report that's generated, and it really lists what areas of need and what areas of risk does each kid have in a particular case. Forget about why they're in court. It doesn't have anything, it's not, hey, why did you steal the candy bar from the gas station? It doesn't even talk about that. What do you have going on in your life that's good? What are areas that we need to work on? And then through that, we try to come up with what I call an individualized court plan.
So what are the results now, all these years later, that you've kind of implemented that assessment and holistic look at one of your litigants? What's happened? Yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed first was it's one thing to know what your areas of risk and areas of need are, that you don't have anything positive going in the community, you don't have good peer-to-peer interactions, you may have some substance abuse problems, you may have some self-esteem issues, suffer from depression, anxiety. Now what do we do with it? And so we began to develop community partnerships. UCA is one of our big partners. Deliver Hope here in town is one of our big partners. United Way, Centennial Bank is one of our partners, and just started reaching out to them to say, hey, what are some things that we can get together on and offer programs and services? And the goal of that is not just to make a kid sit through class. The goal of that is if you have a kid that's in high risk of being a violent offender or high risk of coming back to court, right, then we need to match services to be able to bring that down. Because at the end, when a kid completes probation, we want that risk factor to be lower. That's how we know if we've made a difference.
Are you seeing that occur?
Absolutely. But we were mocked by some stakeholders that this would not work. And do you really think that parents that are going through these really bad situations, that they're going to open up to you and kind of show you all their warts, if you will? What we've seen is a lot of times I think our officers are going, okay, you know what, we're good. Like you've given us enough, we're good, right? But here's something that I didn't anticipate. I had a young girl in here recently that was involved in a school fight, and I take school fights very seriously. It's it can be a big problem. And she came in, and it surprised me because she looked very sweet, 7th grade, very meek. She admitted that she was involved in the school fight. And so before I addressed her on that issue, that's when I'm able to stop and read the assessment. Well, here's what I found out. She was in a car with her 2 siblings when she was about 5 years old, and maybe 6, and there was a wreck. And her siblings made it out of the car, but her mom did not. And they watched her mom burn to death. And the kids at school were making fun of her about her mom. That allowed me to connect with her in a completely different way than for me just to sit up on the bench and point my finger and say, you can't act this way, you can't do this, you know better, and if you don't, this is what's going to happen to you. And I'm confident that when she left the courtroom, she knew what she had done was wrong, but she had been built up and given an opportunity to make it right and to be able to deal with it the next time that it happens. That's where you win. You know, during that time, our recidivism rate has dropped by at least 33%. We've reduced the number of delinquency cases.
Over what period of time is that?
The first, I think the measurement was the first 3 years of our use of the risk assessment tool. That's a hard stat to keep up with because you have continual cases coming in. How far do you track them out? And there's a lot of different ideas on that. Some people will say, all you're doing is being soft with the kids. You're letting them get away with stuff. Okay, Find me one kid in this community that's come in front of me that says I'm soft. They're not going to find them. What I hope that they say is, he was smart with the way that he handled me. He listened. He took my case serious, and he implemented these things to help me. That's the key. And so community safety is a huge deal. I was a former prosecutor, juvenile court judge. It matters the decisions that we make in this courtroom. It matters if I let a kid out of jail or not. It matters if I put them in or not. So I keep track of cases, and still to this day, since the use of our tools, there have been 53% fewer delinquency cases filed in Faulkner County during that time period. So this is what it tells me. Yes, we're taking each case individually. Yes, we're not dropping the hammer on every kid, right? But we're putting these programs in place, and we've seen a decrease in juveniles charged as juveniles in juvenile court. That's paying attention. If the number had spiked and we had a 53% increase, that would tell me we're being soft. This tells me that we're being smart and that it's working.
It seems like an investment to me. I mean, you're looking at 55% fewer delinquency cases. There's the operation of just managing all of that, but also there's what's happening in the community because of that.
There is truth to the idea that the more that a kid comes to court, the more likely it is that kid might end up in jail. But once that kid's in jail, the more likely it is that they commit a new offense, which means it's more likely they go back to jail, which then ultimately means it's more likely that they then do what? They commit an offense as an adult, which makes it more likely that they go to prison. And so we spend a lot of time as a state, rightfully so, addressing the adult system, right? If you want to make a huge difference in prison overcrowding, you need to look at juvenile courts across the state of Arkansas. That's where the investment should be. And I'm not saying anything negative about all the things that have been done on the adult side. I get it. But we've got to focus on what's going on in juvenile court and the kids, because, I mean, we talk about that's our next generation, that's our future. The same is true for the prison population.
Let's talk about the book club that you've started.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot about just having a diverse group of kids that come through our court, and the girls' book club has been phenomenal. The only bad part about it is having to actually tell a young lady that she has to go participate in the girls' book club. There's a lot of eye rolling. I've been very concerned about eyes being stuck right in the back of their heads, some huffing. And then you fast forward 60 days, 90 days when the kid comes back, and I'll say, well, how is the girls' book club? And they'll say, well, it was good. Well, great. What was good about it? Well, I really liked the other girls. It was nice being around them. They understood kind of where I come from. They've been through what I've been through. Great. Anything else? Yes, sir. It sparked a period of growth in my life, right? And so there was like a big thud, and that was me falling out of my chair. Like, who are you, And I asked her, I said, you were upset that you came through the program. What's the difference? And she said, reading that book, it made me realize that girl's been through the same stuff that I've been through, and if she can do it, I can do it. And I knew that I had people around me, so I wasn't alone. I can't tell a girl that. I can't provide that to a girl. I can say nice things and try to build them up, but she's got to get that from someone that's in a similar situation, that's going through what she's going through. And so when you bring those girls around each other, they can build each other up. And so that's been really fun. I keep a list of Post-it notes with some of my favorite sayings, and that's right up there at the...
Sparked a period of growth.
Sparked a period of growth in my life. I use it all the time in court. We partnered with United Way initially for a grant to start a Girl Scout troop. There are a lot of kids that get to participate in that type of activities, and there are a lot of kids that don't. And so we said, what would it look like if we did a Girl Scout troop? They say that we were the first court in the southern region of the United States to have a Girl Scout troop for court-involved youth. There are now several in the state of Arkansas. There's some in Louisiana, Missouri, Texas.
That's cool.
And you know what it takes? It takes not being afraid to mess up, not being afraid to fail. And at the end of that Girl Scout troop program, the girls come into court, and they create a poster, and they come up with ideas for new programs for the court. And they get up and they share, hey, I would like to see a program. One of those programs was an art program. So you know what we have now? We have an art and soul program for the girls that are involved in our court that are very artistic, and that's their outlet. And that came because some 14, 15-year-old girl said, y'all should offer this. That's something that's really cool to see that happen. And then just one more is our Juvenile Court 101 class. My Chief of Staff, Leanna Brown, she's amazing. And she said, what does it look like if we provide some education to the kids and the family about just what it's like to be in the justice system, right? Like what is all this? What's next? How do we prevent from coming back? We have our public defender and prosecutor come in to just explain to the kids, hey, look, this is my role in court. Here's what can happen. Here are things that matter. Here's appropriate courtroom decorum, providing some of that education piece to kids and families. It's a huge deal, and then gives them some motivation and hopefully some support to say, hey, look, you can do this. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, and there is kind of a light at the end of the tunnel.
How many FINS cases do you see on just in a given month? Or
FINS cases stands for Family in Need of Services. And so what the statute or the law says about FINS is habitually absent from school, truancy, habitually absent from home, and then it has this really big catchphrase that says, and really any other reason that the court finds that you need services, right? And so truancy is really the something that is a problem. Since COVID, across the state, and this is one of the biggest conversations that I'm having with other judges across the state, is what happened. And, you know, we know what happened. What happened is we shut down our schools, we sent kids home, and we put them in a room with a device or multiple devices. They couldn't go anywhere, they couldn't do anything, and they got sucked into their phones and their tablets. And their identity is now based on their interactions on social media. And so we've seen a huge increase, especially in young girls, with increased anxiety and depression that just will not go back to school. What can we do collectively to work with families and these kids before they just end up standing in front of a judge for not going to school? Because the reality is, if you send a kid to me that's missed 15 days in October, right? So August to October, they've missed 15 days. Well, when you send that over to me, they're not going to be in front of me the next day. They got to get in line. And so it may take 30 days before they can come see me. Well, then they've missed another 5 days. So you see it builds very quickly, right? And so we've got to be able to do something quicker on the front end, hopefully to keep kids out of court, but more importantly, keep them in school. And families have to be engaged in that. And I think if they see community coming around them and saying, hey, we're willing to do something different, do you need something to help you?
Are you able to court order anything for the parents, like in the delinquency case?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, we had a young girl that came through that it was some truancy. She had a delinquency case, and she came in, and I ordered the mom to go complete a parenting class. So you think a girl doesn't like a book club. Let me tell you something. Telling a parent they got to go to a parenting class is a whole nother level of frustration. We came back to court several months later. The young girl walked in, completely different person. She was on at Conway's JROTC program. She had her uniform on. She looked amazing. So proud of her. Great report. I saw the mom sitting back here. She's crying. She's got her hand up. It's like, oh, here we go, right? Here we go. I said, yes, ma'am. Do you have something you want to say? She's sobbing. You remember when you made me go to that parenting class? Yes, ma'am, I do. I was not happy with you. I said, no, ma'am, you were not. She said, I know. And I went, and I pulled up to the place, and I sat outside, and she said, you know what? I don't want to be here, but if I'm going to have to be here, I want to find out one thing as a parent. One thing. Maybe there's something I don't know. She walked in there, and realized for the first time, that's what she said. She goes, Judge, I didn't even know you could change the password to your Wi-Fi at the house. I said, you didn't know that? She goes, no, I had no idea. And I said, that's made this difference? And she's like, oh, yes, it has. Oh, yes, it has. As soon as I get lip, as soon as they don't do what I tell them to do, I change the password. And they can't log in. You know what they do? I said, no, ma'am. She goes, they get it right. And she said, so thank you for making me go to the parenting class, because I never would have known that. Thank you for saving my daughter. And I said, no, thank you for being mom. Thank you for saving your daughter. And she said, you know what, Judge, I appreciate that. Here's the other thing. My younger son, who was not in my court, he had been slipping up. And now that bigger sister is taking care of her responsibilities, he's on the straight and narrow. And if he tries to slip up, my daughter's stepping up and being a leader in the home. So we can partner. If you're willing to partner as a parent, we'll support you. I actually have two people on my staff that have been through the court system in different ways. My intake officer was a mother of a young man that came to my court who I locked up. And I remember her because when her kid finally did well and was coming off of probation, she read me a long letter that said, this has been awful as a mom. But now that I've seen how y'all handle cases and how you work with people, I am so thankful that if this was going to happen, it happened in Faulkner County, because I don't know how it would happen somewhere else. And I've got my son back. This is somebody that wants to use her life experience that's not been great at times with her kid to come in and say, I owe it to give back. And she's doing amazing things. And so she came to us and said, hey, I would like to start a mom support group. And so she started a mom support group called In the Trenches. And she loves it. I think she gets a little bit too much joy out of it, but she likes it when a mom will come in and say, we don't know what it's like. She's like, oh, yes, I do. Let me tell you. You know what else she does? Every week, she goes over to the juvenile detention center and sits down with the kids. Maybe she brings a pizza. Maybe she brings some fruit. Kids love the fruit. Some of them never had it before. She was surprised. She doesn't have to do that. That's not a part of her job responsibilities. That's because she's been a mom. She's been through it. And so we've got people on staff that have been through this system and have said, I wouldn't be better without it. I want to come back and serve. And so we've got to continue to do that.
So judges like Judge Troy Braswell are able to intervene and help families and youth exit from the system and get better outcomes. But sometimes when we've taken a child into foster care, even though reunification is the goal, it just doesn't work out that way. And then the judge issues an order, which is called a TPR. They terminate parental rights. And therefore, what then happens is the legal rights of the parents now are severed. And that child becomes available for adoption, and the state starts looking for a forever family. And the state has a real partner in that, in Project Zero.
They do. What Christie, Erwin, and her team have done at Project Zero is, it's one of the shining lights, I think, in the Arkansas. Remarkable. Yeah, it is. What they've done for our state, more importantly, what they've done for kids. It's challenging because the majority, if you go to the Project Zero website, the majority of those kids that are there are older. Right. And because usually the narrative is people aren't looking to adopt a teenager. It is a challenge, and it's a challenge in our state because we have a lot of kids who are there and they're just looking for a home. And what, again, Christie and her team has done for kids in this state. And I'm excited that the folks listening to this are going to get to meet Christie and learn a little bit more about Project Zero.
Project Zero is a nonprofit with one goal, and that goal is to have 0 kids in foster care waiting to be adopted. We have been around for almost 12 years, and by the grace of God and a lot of other factors, we have been able to be a part of over 1,200 adoptions. Project Zero was born out of an organization called the Pulaski County Adoption Coalition. The coalition was a grant that was all over the state, and it was people that were passionate about adoption, attorneys, adoptive parents, DCFS staff, other organizations, and it was beginning to dwindle. The grant funds were running out, and that time was closing, that window. And so we decided to go ahead and become a 501c3, and we started doing a few things to help facilitate adoptions. My husband Jeff and I traveled to Austin. I was doing a breakout session at an adoption conference, and a pastor stood up and said that if Christians specifically were doing what we were called to do, what we are called to do, there would be 0 kids in foster care waiting to be adopted in the United States. And we got home, and I just could not shake that. That just kept reverberating. There would be 0 kids in foster care waiting. And so Jeff and I were talking about it, and he just out of the blue said, well, you know, the coalition's ending. Why don't you just repurpose this and call it Project Zero? And so not many people know that he was the impetus behind that name. But so we did, and we went to the state, and we talked to them, and we became very strategic in what we were going to do to accomplish this goal. What our purpose was then, 12 years ago almost, is our purpose today. So it's really 3-pronged. It's raising awareness about the need. So many times people are aware of kids overseas who need to be adopted, and rightly so, they need to be. But they're not as aware that there are around 114,000 kids in the United States of America who today have had their parental rights terminated and who have no family. So that was one of our goals, and we are kind of known for thinking outside the box within the parameter of the rules, but we really do push the envelope because we believe our kids are worth that. We do the Heart Gallery. We have professional photographers around our state who come together and use their gifts and talents to capture the hearts and personalities of our kids. And it's just amazing. It's amazing to see the difference between photos I used to see back in the day and photos that come now from a professional photographer who we are very particular because we want our kids to feel the value that they have. And so we do that. We have 3 exhibits that travel the state, 1 in Northwest Arkansas and 2 that kind of filter out from Central Arkansas, and they go to churches and businesses and different events and that kind of thing. And then we have the only online gallery, and so that particular gallery is where people inquire about kids. And so, you know, raising awareness is critical. The second thing is probably even more critical, and that is building hope in waiting kids while they wait. And so to do that, we do all kinds of things. We have connection events every month where we bring waiting kids together with families who have completed the process and who are waiting to adopt. So they come into a non-threatening environment, be it a ball game or we do Project Prom where we have, you know, girls come to buy prom dresses, or whether it's our big events like Candyland Christmas or Disney Extravaganza. And we allow them, the kids, just to have fun and to do what kids do without the heaviness and the weight of what these kiddos are carrying. And in the middle of that, beautiful things happen. In the middle of that, families are born. And then the last thing is to connect and to help connect waiting kids with the right forever families. And I say right because any old family is not going to do. That's not what we're looking for. We are looking for families that fit what our kids need and who will allow them to grow, to heal, to bloom, and to blossom into what God has created them to be. And so we work in very close partnership with DCFS. I got a message about this particular 20-something wanting to volunteer at our event next week, but His name was Kyler, and he had been waiting for 6 years to be adopted. He would come to every single connection event and be glued to my shoulder. He always wanted to know if I had brought him hot tamales, Takis, and jungle juice, which sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. But he told me, he said, Miss Christie, I'm your bodyguard. And I was like, perfect. I may need one. Perfect. So he would just be right there. I'd be talking to families. He'd be standing there. He had some special circumstances and some needs, and I just often, as we would move the heart gallery, I would just wonder who is out there that's going to be the right family for Kyler. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago now, we were at the Disney Extravaganza, and I noticed out of the corner of my eye a man in a military flight suit, like he had just come from something, and a woman, and they were with Kyler, and I thought, well, that's so nice that they're hanging out with him and visiting with him. And I was just whipping around through the event and kept noticing that they were still together. And I saw them sitting on the ground eating lunch together, and I thought, this is interesting. And I couldn't wait to get to our little mailbox that has all of our inquiries in it at the end of the event to see if his name was anywhere on there. And I got home, and in the exhaustion of the day, I just picked up those forms and just started kind of rifling through, and there it was in big letters, Kyler. It was the only child that this family had inquired about. And so, I cannot express the joy that I felt just seeing his name, but there's so much more to it than that, because there's a process. They've got to learn about him, and DCFS has got to learn about the family. And so a few weeks down the road, we heard that this family had been selected for Kyler. And there was rejoicing among our ranks and among the adoption specialists that we had worked with for him. And so it was a very slow transition, and he was moved into this family. And the following summer, I got to go to court when his adoption was finalized. And the judge asked him, why do you want to be adopted by this family? And he said, because I've been waiting for them my whole life. And the power of that statement was not lost on me, because, you would think, okay, he's been waiting 6 years. He comes to events, no one asks about him. We did a wonderful short film, and it was awesome, and yet there were not, people standing in line. But yet, God intends us to fight this fight. So if it's 6 years, if it's 6 months, I feel the personal weight of that, and I feel like, Kyler deserved that. And so he's in his 20s now, and he lives on his own, and he has a family. Then we realized that a few years ago, probably about 8 or 9 years ago, that allowing kids to be seen, to hearing the number of waiting kids, it moves you, it stirs you. Seeing their faces has literally led to kids being adopted, just seeing a face. But then there's something about giving them a voice that has changed everything, radically changed everything. Because when we give them a voice by shooting short films featuring them, and I think to this point we've shot about 700 short films, we give them the opportunity to share their own truths in their own words and in their own way, and as much or as little as they want to. And it gives them hope to be able to do that and to know that someone is listening. 2 or 3 weeks ago when we call it a short film blitz, and we do these weeks often. And I was sitting in the interviews all day, and I just said, if every person, if they could sit in on one interview and listen to one child share, we would be at 0. Because there's no way you can unhear what you've heard or unsee what you've seen. And to see children in tears because they don't have a family, regardless of what sacrifice that's going to take on the other side of that. Because we're not naive. We know, I know personally as an adoptive parent, I know from talking to hundreds of adoptive parents, there is a sacrifice involved. But isn't there always a sacrifice involved in what God calls us to do? And so allowing people to know and have them be equipped to take on, you know, what God's called them to do.
I want to be an attorney for DHS kids. I'm a DHS kid, and my attorney fights for me, and I like all kids to know someone is fighting for them, even if they don't feel like it sometimes. If I had a superpower, I want it to be healing people, because a lot of people look okay on the outside, but they're hurting on the inside. And if I could make somebody, even for a day, feel better, then I would want to do that. Everybody deserves to be loved. I've been in foster care for 7 years, I think. I've done a lot of stuff in the past, but I'm doing good because I've been at a group home for a year, and that's my longest placement. I want to be adopted because I feel like everybody deserves a family. I would like to be able to stay in one place, and it will be like a for sure spot, and there's not a chance that I can just up and leave one day. I will be there for the rest of my life.
I've always liked reading and writing. I write a lot of short stories, a couple poems. I plan on writing a book, a fantasy book, probably. I think Back to the Future is one of the classic science fiction movies. The person who came up with the idea to have the time machine be in the old DeLorean, to me, they're a genius. My plan is to go to culinary school to be a private chef. I like to cook everything, but I like making a shrimp boil. It's shrimp, corn, red potatoes, and sausage all boiled together with Creole seasoning. I've been in foster care for almost 2 years now. It's been chaotic and stressful, having to constantly be worried you're going to move around a lot, not really being able to just fully unpack because you kind of know you're going to have to pack it up again soon anyways. I do want to be adopted. That way I can have people in my corner consistently and not be bouncing around all the time. I don't have an ideal family in mind. I do want someone a family who will listen and try to understand and not make assumptions. I would get to settle down and not have to be worried. I would get to have people that I can go to when I need help, give me advice, reassure me.
I dream of being adopted. I pray every night that I will find that family. And so it's really my dream. I just want to be with good people. I grew up with my family, but it was never a family. I wasn't treated right. I was neglected for most of my life, and I've been in foster care. I've seen a taste of what family can be, and I want that so bad. I want a family. I want a family to go to Thanksgiving with, and to come to Christmas with, and decorate Christmas tree. I want all those things, and yeah, it's just so beautiful. I've seen how beautiful family can be, and I want one so bad. I would wish that somebody would see this video or meet me at one of the adoption events and want to inquire about me and learn about me and want to be my family. That's what I wish, that right person comes, and I know they will, because
I like to go to school, play basketball, run track. I'm on the basketball team. I don't play a certain position right now. We're kind of getting it all set up, practicing. My favorite basketball player is Michael Jordan. Then I'm part of the FBLA and National Honor Society. FBLA, it stands for Future Business Leaders of America. It just helps you to get to know business better, just in case you want to pursue that career in the future. Yeah, I want to have contracts with big businesses and clean them, because I love to clean and organize, and I want to be in charge of something and have control over something. National Honor Society, it's a thing you get invited to do if you have a good grade average and good behavior. I'm a very relaxed, calm, chill person, very smart. Adoption is being chosen by somebody, being with them permanently. Family is the people that surround you, support you, and love you, and help you out. If I was to get adopted, it would be like it'd be a stable foundation in order to just grow from there. Just a family that's supportive and help me be better, just help me be a better person. If I could have one wish, I would wish to get adopted. I think that if I had a family, it would definitely increase my chances of being more successful.
I would like to be a family health counselor, but first I would like to go to college and get the degrees to become a family health therapist. I would want to be a family health therapist because I've been through a lot, so I want to help people that's been through a lot, because I feel like it's the best thing for me. It's because I like helping people and being there for people, so I feel like I would be a really good therapist. I would like to be adopted because I want someone to love me for me. I would want a family to come in and take me, not hurt me, because I've been hurt enough, and I would want one to take me in, love me, treat me right, respect me, and I will respect them. I want a family. I haven't had one in a long time, and I still want my family back even though they hurt me. I understand they wasn't trying to, but I still just want a family. I want to be a part of somebody's family, or I want to be a part of my own family again. I don't care how old I am, I don't care. And I would love a family to just take me in and love me and not hurt me.
Thanks for joining this episode of Smart Justice. If you would like to learn more about Judge Braswell's court, Christie, Erwin, and Project Zero, check out the Smart Justice magazine at smartjustice.org. You will also find Christie Erwin's book, The Middle Mom, on Amazon to learn more about her heart for adoption. Join us for our next and final episode of Season 3, There Is a Solution. Smart Justice Season 3 hosts are Paul Chapman and Andrew Baker. Special thanks to Nathan Willis Films for sharing the Project Zero shorts. Our Season 3 theme song, A Chance at Life, is written and produced by Arkansas artist Jason Truby. Musical credits include Here With You by Moments and Believe in Me by Moments. Smart Justice is a work of Restore Hope. To learn more, visit smartjustice.org.
Chance at life.